Judicial Watch has been at the forefront of getting the FBI to release the FISA warrant. Chris Farrell, the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch, joins us now. Chris, good to have you here. Congratulations to you, to Judicial Watch, for the important work that you always do for the country. But in this specific instance, we're deeply appreciative because it goes to the very heart of what we've been talking about on this broadcast from the incipient point of the Trump administration.
Thanks, Lou. What we've seen, what we now have documented, is gross misconduct. I'll call it what it is. It's criminal misconduct on the part of senior FBI agents and officials, attorneys on their staff, as well as Department of Justice officials. They knowingly and willingly provided false and misleading evidence to a Foreign Intelligence Service court to have them sign off to conduct what's really a legal coup against President Trump. It's just that simple.
It is that simple. It is that complex. It's that awful. The corruption is, I'm still somewhat irritated at this point that the leaders of the House and the Senate speak in velvet terms and tones about what is a corrupt and toxic level of corruption at the FBI and the Justice Department, who have condoned as well as created a special counsel that has no foundation, in fact, in probable cause, in any evidence whatsoever. And yet we are watching this thing go on and on and on to the detriment of governance in this country, to impeding the President of the United States and his administration. When in the world, what will it take to end this nightmare?
The corrosive effect of someone as corrupt as Rosenstein, who's a fact witness with respect to the foundation of the creation or the appointment of Mueller as counsel and the firing of Comey, he's disqualified at face value. And this sort of abusive process, this abuse of the FISA system or the FISA courts, the submission of this phony warrant application and the underlying affidavit, which is deeply flawed and outright false, the long-term consequences for this is a denigration, a minimizing of faith and trust in the Justice Department and our courts. Don't you? In the long term, this is the path to a failed state. Let me be very clear. You can't keep going this way and pretend that, oh, well, we'll bounce back, it'll be okay. It's not.
When are we going to rip out the influence of the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, and the people it owns, like Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell? The list goes on. They have more company than not in both the House and the Senate. It is a corrupt and flawed government that we're looking at today. President Trump campaigned from 2015 on, talking about he was not owned by anybody. Meanwhile, nearly everyone that he stood up and gave his first address to the nation in the House chamber are owned. They're bought and sold almost daily for one thing or the other. And I don't know what the number is. Is it 50% of them? I don't know. But I can tell you every aspect of this government now needs careful examination. And what do we have to do? The Fourth Estate is no longer reliable because they've sold out to the corrupt, the toxic corruption of both parties and their ideologies, particularly the left.
I can tell you that with respect to the establishment, big capital E establishment, whether it's Democratic or Republican, right, they're terrified of Mr. Trump. They're terrified
that's why they're trying to kill him.
Because he can't be bought. They'll do everything they can to undermine him personally and his presidency, and there's no better evidence, at least this one first exhibit of multiple pieces that Judicial Watch is going to obtain, than this FISA warrant with respect to Carter Page. It's phonied up. It's transparent. It's a pathetic piece of legal work. And I want to know the name of the supervisory special agent who signed that underlying affidavit. He's hiding under a redaction right now, but we're going to find out who it is.
That's interesting. The judges of the FISA court system turn out to be no better than the agents whose work is so flawed and the Justice Department attorneys who are so corrupt, politically corrupt. I mean, it's unimaginable. When we knew for sure and for certainty that the top levels of the FBI were corrupt. We knew that the top levels of justice were corrupt. But I've heard too many people say that the rank and file of the Justice Department, the rank and file of the FBI isn't. And I have to tell you, none of these documents and the field work that either was or was not carried out doesn't leave anyone with confidence in the integrity of the institution of the FBI or the U.S. Justice Department.
And look, the fish rots from the head down, and at a certain point, even the rank and file becomes either negligent or complicit. There comes a point when you realize what your leadership is doing, the games they're playing, the way they're abusing the process and their authority, and you can't say that it doesn't have an impact on the overall organization. And that is the larger, deeper problem. This is a corrosive course of conduct. It's criminality, and it's going to have an impact on the country. We've got to address it and fix it
So
now,
how do we do
not
it?
6
How do
months
we do
from
it,
now.
Chris? I mean, we have been talking about this. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've already said that there should be an investigative division created within the U.S. Marshal Service. The FBI needs to be collapsed in on itself. Agents who are interested in joining that new investigative division of the Marshal Service need to be vetted, and then they would lateral over. And the FBI, as we know it, needs to go away. It has zero credibility. People in the country don't trust. They're watching what's going on. They're seeing this abuse of authority and this corruption, and they've lost their integrity. They've lost their the authenticity or the genuineness of what they once were.
I want to just go to, and it has to be, I think, something, whether the prescription that you're laying out or whether something equally or perhaps even more dramatic and drastic has to be done, because I don't know how we recover from this. Anyone who cares about this country, who cares about their families, their children, their grandchildren, this is not an institution, the Department of Justice, that you want to have anything to do with being responsible for the enforcement of laws that work against the American citizen, that works against decency and honor and fidelity to the Constitution. This is as low a point as one could have imagined, even in the darkest days of Watergate. Do you agree?
I do. There has been no greater documented abuse of authority, abuse of process, to deliberately target a candidate and then a president than what we've seen right now. This is an outrage that goes beyond the pale of anything in our modern political history. There's nothing like it.